Good Tuesday morning, Market Chameleons, and everyone joining us for the first time. Thanks for coming by and checking out the Market Chameleon pre-market show with this man, Dimitri Parvamanik. How you doing, D?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Great. You want to start with the disclaimer?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, keep in mind, Will and I and Market Chameleon, we're not a registered investment advisor. We're not a broker dealer. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need advice, call your registered investment advisor, call your broker. That's what they're there for.
Excellent.
And I'm going to share my screen.
While you're doing that, just a reminder to everyone, we're having a webinar with IBKR. It's a monthly tradition, the second Tuesday of every month at 2. You must register on the IBKR website. That's Interactive Brokers, for people who don't know what IBKR stands for. And I'll put that link in the chat.
Thanks, Will. And yeah, in today's webinar with IBKR, we'll be talking about the different trading sessions, the differences, the importance of them. So that will be 2:00 today, 2 p.m. Eastern, with IBKR, but you do have to register with them. It won't be broadcast on YouTube like we do these, because IBKR is hosting it.
Yeah, and even if you can't make the 2 p.m. show, they exist on the IBKR library. So you can go back and check out all 28 webinars we've done with them so far over 2 years. So there you go.
Thanks. So before we get started, I do want to mention, anybody joining us for the first time, Will and I, we do this show in the morning to try to help answer questions you have about the Market Chameleon tools, the data, the analytics. If you have a question, you could type it into the live chat on YouTube. Will's watching it. He'll read them back to me. If you want to come on the show and ask your question live, we also provide a link to Zoom. So go into Zoom, click on raise your hand. That tells us you want to ask a question. Once we let you in, excuse me, you could ask your question live and direct. So just to give a couple minutes for give you guys a chance to type in the questions, and a couple minutes for more people to join us. We'll start out taking a look at the pre-market report to get insights, what's trading in a pre-market hours, and then we'll move on to the questions. Okay, so pre-market report, these are stocks trading in the pre-market hours. We have a list of our most active stocks, our biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. I see 62 stocks made our percentage gainers list, 16 on the decliners. From this perspective right now, looks like the trading in a pre-market hours is leaning towards the bullish sentiment side. Let's scroll up here to get another view of what's going on in pre-market hours. So this is from a different perspective. We have a calendar view. You could go back days to see what happened in pre-market hours. On the historical dates, today we're October 10th. And from a high level, we see so far 432 stocks are trading higher in the pre-market hours, 220 stocks lower. As far as the volume of shares, 84 million shares are trading on up volume versus 60 million on down volume. And if we convert that volume to dollar value, $1.6 billion worth of stock trading higher versus 1 billion lower. So this also indicates so far trading activity in the pre-market hours is leaning towards the bullish side. We'll do one more check from a different perspective, then we'll move on to the questions. So coming back down to this report, we see that there are small cap stocks in here, ETFs, leverage products, any security that's listed on the major US exchange. If it's trading in the pre-market hours, it meets the thresholds and conditions that we have preset with liquidity, volume, price. It can make this list. And to narrow it down to a small group of stocks, we could use the filters above. And I'm going to use, well, if you have a watch list, you can filter by your watch list if you're interested to see what's happening in stocks that are in your watch list. We're going to use this one as an example in ETF. And when you click on it, you get a drop-down menu to choose from. There are different ETFs in there, sector ETFs, broad-based ETFs. The S&P 500, that's the SPY, that's the S&P 500 ETF. When we click on it, the report below, the tables below will get filtered by stocks that are holdings in the SPY ETF. Which are the S&P 500 constituents. Here we see 8 stocks made our percentage gainers list, 3 on the decliners. So, not overwhelmingly bullish, but more towards the bullish side. The trading right now is leaning more towards the bullish side. And I do think, we had a couple of rallies yesterday. I think a Fed official mentioned that if the long-term yields are ticking up, that may mean they don't have to do more on the short end. I think the market took that as a positive that the Fed may not increase. So we did see a rally off of that yesterday. But obviously lots of stuff going on right now with the Middle East and the oil, and still uncertainties with inflation, Ukraine. So lots of stuff. And I think we have earnings coming up. So, a lot of things right now there that could go either way. So I guess, we're a couple minutes into it. I'll take questions now if you have them.
Nothing's popped up, D. I guess when if someone wants, you just mentioned earnings, if someone wants to see like the start of earnings, when they start, it's all, I mean, the earnings all the time, right?
Right.
CNBC typically starts talking about earnings when the banks announce. The banks seem to be the leading edge of the earnings, what they refer to as the earnings season. How would someone find that on the site?
So, I mean, a quick way is if you go to the earnings calendar. Under earnings calendar, it gives you, the amount of earnings that we're capturing, stocks that are set to report in the coming weeks. So you could see here, I guess this week still light. If you're looking at number of earnings, let me see next week. So see, they start next week, they start ticking up, 114. Let's see, following week. So you could see here that,
I see. I'm looking at JP Morgan's. Looks like it's.
If we wanted to look up just like, let's say JP Morgan, we could just type it in here, and then we have October 13th. So here you go. So if you just type in the symbol up top, it'll show you the schedule for that symbol, and then you could kind of see what the earnings announcements in the past. So JP Morgan, October 13th. So that's coming up.
Perfect. We did have a question from Rob. He said, is the VWAP support and resistance on the pre-market filters the same thing as the standard deviation on the options chain?
So, no. Let me come back to over here. So I think we're looking at this support and resistance. And when we talk about, support and resistance, there's no one way or correct way or universal way to just measure it. There could be different methodologies, right? And you could do it like Rob mentioned, with standard deviation moves. And how do you calculate standard deviation moves? Well, you could use historical moves, calculate the standard deviation that way. But then you have to decide, well, how many days do I use? Do I use 20 days? Do I use 30 days? Do I use 50 days, 100 days? So there's no one methodology, right? There are different ways to measure it. And in this pre-market report, what we do is isolate. We don't use standard deviations or moves, but we're looking at where the larger trades are occurring and where the stock is going post-trade. Okay, the idea is that, well, if there are big, large trades that are transacting and they're, and let's, whatever we have it set to, I think, let me see, right now it's 50,000, but let's say we set it trades that transact that are $250,000 or more, right? And if we use those as, at that moment, that was the fair value of the trade, what happens afterwards, right? This is what it's looking at. Where are these big blocks trading, and how's the stock bouncing around those points, those pivot points. So over here, let's just take Apple, for example. These are trades that are in a pre-market. So right now we're on a pre-market. And I isolated trades that are block trades 250,000 or above. So they could have been happening in the dark pool. They could have happened on the exchange, but but those are single large trades. To kind of give us an idea where maybe the bigger, orders are transacting, and to try to get a sense of, well, where are they stepping in to buy, where are they stepping in to sell, and what's obviously you need to buy and sell to transact, but what is it doing afterwards? The idea is that if you have a larger amount of stock to buy than to sell, right? If that happens, then the larger amount of stock that's to buy is going to clean up the seller quicker, and the stock will start to float up. If you have a larger amount to sell, then the sellers are going to be quicker to fill the buys, and we're going to see the stock to drift lower to next levels. And here, for example, Apple, so far in the pre-market hours, you could see we found 13 trades that met the condition of 250,000 or above. And then we found another 10 trades that met this condition, but we separated them based on where the trades occurred relative to where the stock is now. Okay, so we see that below the current price, 178.25, we saw 13 large trades below that price. And you could see not too far away, $178.14 VWAP. That's volume weighted average price, right? For total dollar value of $5.2 million. So $5.2 million worth of stock traded at an average price of $178.14. And we see that the stock didn't break through, floated up there. So there wasn't big pressure to push it lower, right? It floated up. And then we see that there were another 10 trades above the 178.25, right? That's because we're comparing them to where the stock is trading currently. And from those 10 trades, those 10 big block trades, the VWAP, or the volume weighted average price, was $178.74. It's about 50 cents higher, right? 49 cents higher than where it is now. And there's a total dollar volume of $4.2 million worth of stock trading. So we see here that right now, kind of getting a sense of where are those big, block trades are transacting, what the stock is doing. So we get kind of a picture of maybe, the the spread between where there might be a bigger support or supply of stock. How the market is, how the stock is bouncing around, and the relative dollar volume that's traded there. And then we could compare that, is that a lot of stock, a little for the pre-market, is that a lot of stock trading? Is it, below? Is it like in range? So here we have, a reference that so far $9.4 million worth of stock traded in Apple in the pre-market that met these conditions. And if we compare that to historical pre-market activity for same conditions, same trade conditions, we see that on average we get about 61.9 million, almost $62 million worth of stock that trades in a pre-market that meets these big block conditions. So you could see it's relatively light so far, right? That's only 15% of average there. We still have some time to go, but this just tells you that so far in the pre-market hours, that if we just took where those big transactions are, there's a meeting of the minds, they transact, and we could see what the stock is doing and how far apart are those VWAPs from the point of where the stock drifted lower or drifted higher. So that's just one way to try to gauge, right? Try to gauge where the potential support and resistance is at this moment, given this information at the most recent moment, where those, because it could be, there are certainly hidden bids and offers right in the dark pool, and even on the lit exchanges, they don't have to display all of it at one time. But
we did have some questions pop up from Rob. I didn't want to interrupt you as you were going.
Okay.
Let me see. Will this support and resistance update during the day every 15 minutes as other data does, or will it adjust with the addition of all trades at closing?
So for the pre-market, so remember this particular report here only looks at pre-market, and that's why we'll be talking about the different sessions actually today at 2 p.m. So I'm glad you're kind of bringing it up. But this looks at only in the pre-market hours, because we separate the different side. There are 5 different sessions throughout the day, and we separate those out. And if you, for example, if you wanted to see a similar report when the stocks do open up, I believe it's going to be this one. Oh, let me come back. Yep, it was this one. So this one is going to show us same idea during market hours. So right now it's for yesterday. We're not open yet. So this is at the end of yesterday's regular trading hours. And yes, so there's a 15-minute delay on the data. And then as data comes in, if it meets these conditions, right? Because remember this, it has to meet this block trade condition, right? Not every trade meets that condition. Once it meets that condition, it goes into our database, we isolate it, and then this report will run, I think like on a 5-minute timer, right? And it will update. So a couple of things, it has to meet the conditions. Data is in 5-minute delay, and then once it recalculates, it'll go in here. So you could see here, how Apple did yesterday. Now, the idea there is we're looking at these block trades, and not only are we looking at support resistance, we're measuring how they're progressing throughout the day, right? So how is this moving? Is it moving like in the upward lateral or downward lateral, fashion? right? So it could be just sitting there, and then the stock's just bouncing around. It could be um, just more volatility, or they could be moving in a fashion where that that those that support resistance spread is moving slowly higher and higher and higher, breaking previous levels, or lower, lower, and lower. So when we detect that, if there's nothing going on, there's no indicator. If we detect that it's moving in a bullish manner, this will light up. If it's in a bearish manner, this will light up. Okay, so that's what this is doing.
Rob, relative to what you've been talking about, he's asking, is there a way to compare the support and resistance with the standard deviation on one screen without clicking back and forth?
No, because these are different measurements, right? These are different measurements. This isn't looking at this itself is not looking at a here. Let's come over here. Okay, I guess over here we do have indicators up here. So I didn't know that. So let's take a look at the standard deviation we want. So we do have, Rob, over here on one screen. This is the big money stock that tells you what's happening. So
you just click how you got there.
Yeah. So just type in the symbol up top, Apple, in the search box. When you get there, click on chart. So you'll land on here, summary, right? And then click on this chart. And to give you guys an idea, what is the support resistance of a volatility band? So this one here is looking at, the yellow line is looking at the VWAP. So it's calculating throughout the day the volume weighted average price, right? So it's not looking at just price alone, it's weighting it by the volume that traded, right? So if 100 shares traded, let's say at $178.99, and 10,000 shares traded at $178.15, well, the 10,000 shares that transacted would get more weight than the 100 shares, right? That's the volume weighted average price. So the 100 shares will get averaged out, but it'll only get a smaller proportion, because 100 versus 10,000, right? So the volume weighted average price is this yellow line. That's what we're looking at. That yellow line in the middle, that's the day's volume weighted average price. So we could see here the VWAP 177.84, right? That's the volume weighted average price, and we see that the price itself closed above it. So the blue line is following the last price. So it's showing you where the last price is versus the VWAP. How much is it moving away from the VWAP, right? So because if it keeps moving away from the VWAP further and further, that means that the volume, it could be moving up fast and with less volume, right? Or moving down fast with less volume, because the greater the volume, the more impact it has on that moving average. So we could see here how that blue line is moving relative to the VWAP. So we could see as the day progressed yesterday, it was kind of bouncing around the VWAP, and then like right around here. And I think that might be where the Fed, when we mentioned that there was a Fed speaker indicating maybe that they don't have to raise interest rates higher. And I think that kind of spurred a a rally in the market. So then we have these two green lines, right? They're the two green lines so we could see visually. Those two green lines are measuring the standard deviation of the movement around the VWAP, right? So where do we think mathematically, right? The standard deviation moves, the percentage moves of the last price around the VWAP. So that's where that band is. So you could see the band itself, is moving, with the VWAP as it's climbing. So if it breaks that green line, right, up or down. So in this case, it broke it to the upside. That means that the stock itself has made a greater than one standard deviation move away from that VWAP price. Right. So if we consider what is the support and resistance, right? If we think that, that 67% of the observation should be within these green lines, right? Somewhere in between. And 1/3, somewhere outside, up or down. So you could see here that it's breaking that resistance because the bulk of where we think the returns are mathematically based on this would be in between here. So once it breaks there, it's making a more powerful move. So yesterday you could see that Apple's stock price right up at the end kind of broke out of that resistance band, right? A standard deviation resistance band, and made a more powerful move to the upside. And as you can see, the VWAP started to climb with it, but at a slower pace, right? Because the VWAP is moving at a slower pace, and you're just seeing, do they converge eventually? Does the blue line come back down to the yellow line, or does a lot or more trading has to happen up here for that yellow line to keep moving up?
Awesome job, Dima.
So you can see there is just a different methodology to measure this, right? It's just a different way to measure the, where you think the stock prices or percentage return should be around. All right. And look, we will also discuss some of the different, because we talked about pre-market and regular trading hours today, and the webinar today that we'll get into more details about it.
Now, the link to the webinar is at the top of the chat today for anyone who came in late. It is a monthly series we do with Interactive Brokers. It's always the second Tuesday of every month. I'll also put the link to the full library on Interactive Broker that has every webinar we've done with them in there. So just registering today. You don't have to show up at 2. You can watch it at your convenience as well. It sits, but it does. Again, you have to register, and it's all on the Interactive Broker platform. That's where it stays. So great job, Dima, as always. We're right at the opening bell. You have a great day, my friend. I'll see you at 2.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Hope to see you guys later today. Stay safe out there. Have a great trading day. Hope to see you guys later.
Trade in peace.